Well, Jon, thank you so very much for taking the time out of your incredibly busy life. And I know it's busy because I see the shit you get up to online, and I know you personally. We've actually known each other for quite some time. So I'm well aware of all the crazy stuff you do. But I want to thank you for taking the time out, as I say, to join me on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure, mate. Glad to be here.
Fabulous. Now, Jon, as I said just a second ago, you do some really unbelievable stuff. And you know, what I love about you and your philosophy, if you like, is the way that you just go at life and you grab life and you run with it. What's the driver behind that, my friend?
It's a very big question. I've been asked this so many times, and I guess, I've tried to look back on this sometimes because there's been times where my life's almost got a bit on top of me. I tend to be almost like the opposite to a lot of people. I'm like, right, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E. And then, as we all know, everything can be lined up. And then all of a sudden, life will pull the rug out from underneath you. So it's been something I've actually had to ask myself from a cautious point of view as well, to not overload myself mentally and physically. But I guess, like, looking back, I've always been very sporty. I've always been into tennis and football, like my things when I was younger. I'm not going to lie, I love winning. I love the competition. And I guess when I got into kind of adult life, I was 17, everything became a bit more individual. Like, I couldn't play football for a long time. So that was what got me into working out and getting stronger and all that stuff. And I guess strength training was probably a big driver in that it just constantly opened up new things. And as a coach, I was always looking at, okay, well, can I be strong and super fit and ride a bike and run? Yeah, because I like doing different stuff. I've got that kind of personality where I like doing many different things. But as a fitness coach, obviously, you soon find out that you can't do everything at once. Right. You can't be a powerlifter and a fighter and an elite runner. So I guess a lot of it was an experimentation thing. Like, as I went through a fitness, it was trying to find out, well, how do we make life exciting and train for all of these different methodologies? And I guess when you look at all of my different challenges, I guess we'll touch on them individually as we go along. They're very different in terms of what was required. So a cage fight, cycling across America, cycling across Australia, doing a bit of bodybuilding stuff and packing on muscle. It's all very different things. And I guess that was it. It was kind of one big experiment. And I like to just see what I can do. It's like, well, starting from this point that I'm at now, how do we get from never really cycling to cycling across an entire continent? That sort of stuff excites me. I like it to be big. I like it to be a challenge. And I guess, that's pretty much where all of these sort of challenges are born from.
It's kind of funny because, as I say, I know you personally. We've known each other for some time, and I know a bit of your background. And am I right in thinking that you injured your back so badly you were told that you couldn't squat anymore or wouldn't be able to squat anymore? Is that correct?
Well, to be honest, like, at the time, I didn't even I didn't really know what a squat was. I was 17. I played probably my best football season. I think I scored 47 that year. So it was a good year. But being a kid, I was like, Mum, my back hurts every week. Mum, my back hurts. And my mum's brilliant. She'll sort of tell me to be cautious, but, keep going. You'll be all right, kind of thing. And I kept playing and playing. And then the start of the next season, I had a game. It was on a local football pitch. So it's known for being like, you might as well play on concrete. I jumped up for a header, landed, and it literally felt like my back split in half. Wow. And with hindsight, we then found out that I basically had a double stress fracture in my spine for the whole season. So that's the kind of bloke I am. My best football season was with a stress fracture in my spine. Go figure that one out. I kind of went to see a surgeon, and he said to me, look, you're 17, we can operate, but if you were maybe 45, 50, we'd probably recommend an operation. But given that you're 17, you're fit and healthy, there's a good chance you'll sort of recover on your own. So it was a case of just do nothing and let it heal itself, which kind of the worst thing you can tell somebody whose life, or kind of outside of school, everything I did revolved around sport. And kind of at the time, it felt like my whole identity had been ripped out. But to answer your question, the surgeon said, you'll probably repair the back will heal itself, but you'll probably never run again. Which obviously meant to me no football, no tennis, no hockey, no cricket, you know, all the things I was playing. And funnily enough, that's when I then got into strength training. I mean, this is just making me feel old now. It was so long ago that the physio actually said to me, you need to strengthen your core. And it was like core was a new thing. There's like this mythical thing inside you that nobody really knew what it was. So
new group of muscles.
I got into yeah, and that's when obviously I went to Men's Health to find out what your core was, and started doing loads of sit-ups and all that stuff. But yeah, that was pretty much it, and that was what got me into. To be honest, the stuff I got into then, I wouldn't call it strength training. It was following stuff in magazines, but that was ultimately what kind of led to the evolution of my training, getting into being a coach. And to be honest, like a lot of coaches, I got into it to help myself.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I found out I was good at it. I was super interested, and then started to realise, oh, if I actually get strong and I build my aerobic capacity, etc., then when I get back into sport, you know, for me, it wasn't an if, it wasn't a maybe won't run again. It was a I will get back into sport. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the journey through that. I think it was 3 months all I could do. No, 3 months doing nothing, which literally drove me insane. 3 months just swimming, which I don't know. Some people love swimming, but for me, just staring at the bottom of a pool for an hour again drove me insane. But it was what I had to do, and then from there, I slowly got back into stuff. Started playing football again at university, and kind of went from there.
Did you? Now you come from Guernsey,
yeah.
So that's where Matt Le Tissier is from, I believe. Right?
It is, yeah. Should we explain where Guernsey is? Because most people think
we might well do, because I'm afraid people from all over the world download this podcast, my friend.
I think people think it's like next to Narnia or somewhere, but it's basically a small island between England and France. We're actually closer to France, but we're part of the Channel Islands. It's Guernsey. A lot of people seem to know where Jersey is. Right. Guernsey's like the kind of little brother, but much nicer.
Okay, so you then started training your core, followed workouts from Men's Health. So you probably were doing kind of the bodybuilding workouts of the day, which were popular in those magazines back then. And that led to more interest in what was going on, and lit this fire about coaching people. Did you always want to be a coach? Did you always show coaching kind of attributes as you were growing up, do you think?
I guess what I can say is when I was playing football, I was more often than not, when I was the top of the age group anyway, I tended to be football captain for my local club. I guess I was one of the leaders on the pitch. You know, at the time, you didn't think of it as coaching or anything like that. It was just doing what you do. And I guess I was more into just pushing people. I was the guy that was, shouting and screaming a little bit at half time and pushing people to be better. But no, it wasn't really on my mind to be a coach as such. In fact, being from Guernsey, it's not a tax haven, it's a financial centre.
All right. Okay, I'll just make sure I make a note of that in the show notes.
There's a disclaimer on the bottom of the video. Yeah. But a lot of people in Guernsey, we work in finance, and there's a lot of links to the finance world. So I've got a very good head for numbers as well. And growing up, I guess going through school, I had a good education and stuff. Very much about numbers. I can just do numbers quickly and enjoy doing. It was easy looking at a financial manager, stockbroking, all of these things. And I actually did a year working in which some people find amazing, that I could actually ask for more than sort of 5 minutes at a time. But I did it for a year, went off to university and actually did management studies there, which was a combination of accounting, all that stuff. And it was really about 2.5 years into 3 years, I just started looking and thinking, this is not firing me up. Like the idea of spending my entire life in office just literally made me feel sick at times. And it was difficult because, again, at that age, you're getting that thing of, shit, how am I going to tell my parents that actually I'm going to basically work? I guess back then, or even now, a lot of people look at exercise coaching and fitness coaching as a bit of a cop-out for a lifestyle job, when actually, as well as I do, it's potentially more and stuff like that. effectively, I went to my could walk into a sort of 40, 50 grand a year job. I'm going to take this job in England on £5 an hour and see where it goes. So, yeah, it wasn't really something I intended to do, but I guess it just sort of grabbed me at one point. Actually, at the time, my sister's boyfriend was a personal trainer, and he was starting to make pretty decent money. And I think I just looked at him, and I no disrespect to them, but the people that I saw in the bank I was working at, and there was clearly, in terms of energy and job satisfaction and stuff like that. I was actually quite privileged. I think they saw good things in me in the bank, and the different directors in the bank to see maybe what areas you might work in. And
yeah.
Actually said to me, look, if you want an energetic career, if you want to sort of make big bucks, this is probably not the career for you. And I have a lot of respect for that guy to this day. He's, as I understand, he's actually still working at that bank, or at least at another bank in Guernsey. So for him to say that, it was a very honest thing to say, but it potentially did change the entire course for me. Because again, coming from a place like this, you can get very much money. It's money, money, money. Pay the mortgage. Housing over here is super expensive. And people do just get stuck in that. Once you're in that funnel, it's very hard to get out of it.
Yeah, for sure. What's the population of Guernsey, approximately?
Population now changes a bit. I think it's about 63,000 at the moment. So I always describe it as big, small. Like, it is to a lot of people, it's like a small English town.
Right.
But we get a lot of stuff done. I mean, Matt Le Toq, obviously our most famous footballer. One of my cousins ran for Britain in the Olympics. Another one was a world touring car champion. There's all sorts of very high-level sports people here. We always say in this island, you either get very good at fitness and exercise or very good at drinking. Some people manage to merge the two.
I was going to say, is there documented proof of the two coming together and working?
Yeah, we've got it. It's an interesting place to live. It's boring. Some people, it's a very safe way of life generally. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you're into your running and cycling and stuff like that, it's a brilliant place to be, especially in the summer. Although, thinking about it, like when we cycle, people say to me, "So, are you like an elite cyclist?" When we've been going across America and Australia, and how much do you train? And I'm like, listen, going around this island is about 23 miles around.
Right.
And I don't think I've ever done more than 2 laps, because once you've seen the same thing twice, you're just like, I'm going home. And the whole point of the island, 107 meters at the airport. So training for the rock 5 or 6 times up this big hill over here, and then you just get tired of it. So all its challenges training for these, but
no, that's fabulous. But so you started on this path down fitness, personal training, coaching, and you came to the UK to take a job. That was your first stab at it. When did you decide to go back and set up the business on the island?
Well, the kind of stages between there was, I worked in the gym for 6 months, and that was my first taste of, I can't work for anybody else. Like, as you probably get with me, I'm like, I've got a lot of ideas. I want to be doing different things. I want to try stuff and experiment with stuff. And I guess like any business, they have rules and regulations. Some need to be there, and some are just more of a ball and chain than anything. But I fell out with the manager pretty quickly, and then life threw up an opportunity to take over a studio over in England. So I'd only been qualified for 6 months, and then we took over this PT studio. Did that for 3 years, and the guy I did it with, Lawrence Clemente, we got on really well, kind of became like brothers. But again, Lawrence he got married at that point and wanted to go off in one direction, and I kind of had all these crazy ideas I wanted to do. And that's what you have to realise about life sometimes, is having the right people around. Not that Lawrence wasn't the wrong person to have around, but if you're in a business and you're 50-50 and you're wanting different things, it does cause. So I think it was 2010, May 2010 was when I came back to Guernsey and started the Guernsey fitness camps, as we called it then. So it's actually going to be like the sort of 10-year anniversary this year, which again makes me feel very, very old. But there's been a lot of water under a lot of bridges since then.
Yeah, I'm sure. When did you start to get the urge to do your America? The America cycle was the first one, right?
Yeah. The kind of funny thing about that was I don't know why. Like sometimes I just get these ideas. Like don't ask me where they came from or how to explain it, but I just decided cycling across Australia would be cool. And I then got out. And all of a sudden, it didn't seem like such a great idea because you're like, so there's Perth and there's Sydney. There is nothing in between.
No.
So I then looked at America and I was like, okay, there's a bit, but America at least, there's more in between. There's a lot of scenery and stuff. So I managed to convince my fiance at the time to come and do it with me. And so between but moving out of the business in the UK and starting the one in Guernsey, we sort of planned this America cycle. And I actually did it. We actually opened the business in, I think it was just 4 months. I actually took 3 months off and went and cycled across America. Now, common business wisdom, that is after 4 months. But again, life gave me what I needed, and we had a couple of guys. So that was why we actually did America first, and then I came back and started putting the business. Australian cycle didn't come around until 2016, I think it was.
Right.
I did Australia second, just because, again, my kind of twisted brain, I'd said I would cycle across Australia, and it was like, well, you've done America, yeah, but you still haven't done Australia. So do you want me to carry on? I can tell you the story of how we got to Australia. There's a
yeah, because I'm interested in that, because I know you had some really extreme days doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, business was going really. I had my fitness camps going, and we then decided I wanted to open up a gym. I was getting a bit sick of gyms just doing their gym thing and opening the doors. Here's some equipment. So we wanted to do things a bit different. So I opened up a gym as well, and after a year and a half, I still don't know if I'm legally allowed to talk about this, so I'll miss out exactly what happened. But basically, there was an incident in the, and to cut very long story, I had to close it down. There was kind of no other option, which was a very expensive and painful time. But again, I've got that kind of mindset where I looked at it and went, okay, this is shit, in a word, but we're not going back. We can't change this. I look at the situation, and funnily enough, I just had a conversation with my fiance now where I said, you've got to look at what's on my menu right now. You might be, I can't remember who said it, where you might be sat in McDonald's and you can desperately want a lobster thermidor, but you're not getting it. You've got the McDonald's menu, choose the best thing from there. So that was where I went, this is my time to go traveling. I was now single at the time, had a decent amount of money in the bank, no responsibilities now. There's no staff to look after, no business to run. And my brain went, do you remember when you were about Australia? So that was when I just went, right, I don't know how I'm going to do this or what's required, but I booked a plane ticket out to Perth, and then actually put it out on Facebook, said, I'm cycling across Australia if anybody wants to join me, as a joke. And then Ben, who I'd met at an event in America, piped up and said, I'm up for it. He had a CrossFit gym at the time. We still got it. Got another couple, I think, now. But he said, look, my gym's kind of able to run itself. Can I come with you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And looking back, I'm glad I didn't do it on my own, because Australia, the middle of Australia, is literally the emptiest place in the world. Well, it might be an exaggeration, but from what I've seen so far, it's a very empty place. And you get some weird times mentally. You suddenly get that feeling. It's a feeling I think everybody should experience, but it's also not a very nice one, where you go, we are literally hundreds and hundreds of miles from anywhere.
Right.
And you're also aware there's snakes around, there's all these deathly spiders you hear about in Australia. And you're like, if you get an incident like that, you get hit by a truck, there's a very good chance you're not going to make it where you need to make it in time. That was kind of how Australia came about. Again, I kind of just sort of fall into these things. Like, I get an idea and just, like I say to people, like, take that first step. And then once you've taken that step, it's hard to explain until you do it, but you just start to see different things. Life starts to look differently. You start to see opportunities that often Australia's always been there. Bikes have always been there. The plane has always been there. But why do I see that opportunity and other people don't? And I guess that is the key thing I've learned is take that first step, as scary as it is. Just realistically, the first step is never that big a thing. Like booking a plane ticket is not particularly challenging. There's nothing physical about it. But once you've booked it, now I'm starting to see things on the internet that are now relevant to that challenge. I'm starting to see books. I'm starting to think about people I've met in my life who at the time maybe weren't particularly relevant, but now they can help me with that challenge and help me with the training. And that's exactly what happened with that challenge again. And I think I only trained for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and literally I hadn't been on a bike since 2010 when we cycled across America. And that's why when people say to me, "Oh, but you must be like an elite cyclist. You must be, And honestly, I cycle probably less than most people. In fact, I haven't cycled since I went to Australia. I just get this thing. I like cycling across things. It's a good way to see the country and see it differently. I guess that's just the kind of the mindset side behind it as much as anything.
It's interesting you mention the mindset because clearly when you're on your own or with a partner doing something like this, you're in your head a lot. And dealing with that and overcoming that is possibly one of the biggest challenges you face.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because one of the things I was worried about was boredom. Like I as you're probably getting the idea, I like doing different things. I finished one book, I'm reading another book. I like different music all the time. And that's an interesting thing we can talk about later that I do with personal training clients called neurotyping, where it's all about people have different personality types based on different brain chemicals and stuff. And knowing that stuff and knowing that about yourself helps you to kind of choose the right challenges and training and stuff. But going back to what we're talking about, the worry I had was it's just going to be boring in the middle of these days. I need like a million songs and podcasts and stuff. It took us 31 days to go from coast to coast. I listened to music for one day, and that was when I was literally, it was a rock bottom day. I was tired. It was the anniversary of a lady who died out on one of our fitness holidays. We'll go back to that one in a second. And it was just one of those days, where your brain is just in a hole. Right. And I thought the only way to get through this is just music up and just drown out the thoughts. But the other days, there was this strange thing that I wasn't expecting. I didn't really know would happen. It was almost like the 8 hours of, I don't want to call it meditation, but just cycling, like not really thinking about anything and just seeing the road. And I think it took a challenge like that, because when you're on a challenge like that, you're either going to complete it or you're going to quit. And for me, quitting's not an option. Like, all right, if I get hit by a truck, then that's the way it is. We'll get out of there. But until I get to the end, I'm not going to stop. So I guess that put my brain in a place of, instead of thinking about all these bad things that have happened and what happened with the gym, it was just literally just stop and just be quiet and just turn your legs. And that was quite an experience for me. And because I've never really been one for meditation, I've done yoga here and there. I know I should do it more, and I do enjoy it. But I am one of these guys. I'd rather be in the gym, building my business and stuff. So that was actually a big lesson of finding a challenge that's kind of so big and so narrow-minded that your brain has to go to a different place.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people kind of choose things, whether it is, I want to lose weight, I want to get 10% body fat, I want to kind of be fit, I want to do a bit more running. There's so many ways out that's why they never get there. I think it takes a challenge that is so daunting that it literally will move your brain to a different space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And you've certainly done that in all your different challenges. I know also another one that you got involved with was the cage fight. You did that a few years ago, right?
Yeah, again, it honestly scared the shit out of me. Like I've never, it's funny because people look at me and I kind of seem to have quite an aggressive personality, but like you said, it's more I'm just driven and I don't let things get in the way. To me, there's a big difference. But the cage fight was it was just a bucket list thing. I had no interest in being a fighter or doing it as a career, but it was, again, I can't really tell you why. I just wanted to tick it off my list. I think it is a bit of a man thing. We want to, like, nobody really, I wouldn't say nobody, a lot of people don't want to get in a fight, but they just kind of want to have had one. It's just this weird man thing. But yeah, I did that. It was a K1 kickboxing fight. Again, that was never straightforward, because it was about a month before I don't really know why, but I was being sick one evening. I think I ate something bad. And I remember kneeling in front of the toilet, and the next thing I woke up in the bath. It was about 4 feet away. And I could not sit up. I was literally paralyzed, couldn't sit up, couldn't move my neck. And clearly, I think I'd stood up, blacked out from the pressure of being sick, and fallen and smashed my head on the bar. So I went to the doctor the next day, and he said, I know you're doing a cage fight soon, because I've been to him about my knee. And he said, obviously, that's not happening. And my brain flicked back to what we were saying about the spine thing, and I'm just like, here we go again. So I was like, well, look, we're going to disagree on that. So can we find the optimal way forward? For me, I'm like, there's ideal and there's optimal given the circumstances. And he just looked at me and was just like Guernsey being Guernsey, he kind of knows what I'm like. And he was like, all right, let's discuss a few things. And I never told anybody this. I kept it to myself because, again, I didn't want the other guy finding out that I had a bad neck. So, yeah, I kind of got in the cage with a bad neck and probably shouldn't have been doing it. And even in the sparring a week before, my mate caught me with a fairly light kick on the head, and it jarred my neck again. And I was just like, you know, you got half your brain going, this is a dumbass idea. And there's the other half, the bigger half, as I call it, that's just going, well, you're going to do it, so let's just struggle on through. So, and that was all going nicely. I made my way into the cage. I was like, right, finally made it. All you got to do is last 9 minutes. And then I broke my foot in the first round. So
it wasn't with the first kick, with it? That would have been quite...
I look back at the video sometimes. I think I know which one it was. It was about halfway through the first round. And then it was the end of the second round, actually. My corner man said to me, the worst thing he could have said, he was like, mate, don't look at your foot. Just go out there. And so obviously I looked at my foot and it's just starting to swell, black and blue. So if you watch the video of the fight, it basically I was trying to turn into a boxing match, and the other guy's still trying to kick me, but I managed to catch him with the right hand and got a knockout in the third round. So as usual, there was a lesson through the adversity. There
always is, my friend. There always is.
I'm just like, I just want to do a challenge. I'm like, life just let me please do a challenge, enjoy it, and move on.
One thing I want to touch on, and this is just from a personal perspective, I know that you spent some time at Gym Jons a couple of years ago. Now, for those that don't know, it's Gym Jons, I think, was famous for training some of the guys on 300, right? The film about Spartans. Yeah. And it's quite, how can we put it, a unique facility. What happened there?
So, largely because I heard of the Gym whole 300 thing, and it was great to be there because, again, I found out just how misleading the media is and stuff like that. And there was all this thing going around about 300 work. That's literally what it was. I think it was at the end of the actor's time at Gym Jons. They just did this one workout. It was like 300. I can't remember. It was 300 reps in total, or 300 reps of a few different exercises. But that was it. It was literally just a challenge. Yeah. It wasn't how they trained. It was, the things you hear is so misleading. And you watch the 300 movie, and these guys are jacked. They're massive. They literally look like Spartan warriors. And along with this, they also trained Henry Cavill for I can't remember which Superman movie it was. I'm not very up on all that. But when Henry Cavill did his first Superman, and that was the first lesson in the best way to look big for a lot of people is to be super lean. Obviously, you need some muscle, but these guys weren't as big as you think. Like, again, Henry Cavill, they said to us, I haven't guessed how heavy Henry was in the movie. And most people are like 110 kilos or whatever it is in American pounds. And they said actually he was like 84 kilos, 85 kilos. And if you go and look at the pictures in Superman, he looks so much bigger.
Yeah.
But what they were good at, the nutrition was really on point. And they got these these guys down to like, I think it was 7-8% body fat. So obviously when they're doing the movie, it was do a bit of a pump up session, bit of a tan. They got all the lighting and everything else. So they pushed them hard. But for me, the biggest takeaway was actually that they ate at the gym, I think, at least 2 out of the 3 meals a day, and everything was on point in terms of calories and stuff like that. So yeah, there was some really good lessons there. And I think the thing about Gym Jones is that, to be honest, it's a lot like the way my facilities have been, where people get super scared of it because they see the results coming out of it and they see the hard work. But actually, when you go to these places, like, so long as you're willing to put in the work, they will welcome anybody.
Yeah.
And that is a thing. It's like, we don't give a shit whether you deadlift 200 kilos, 100 kilos, or you've never deadlifted before, but don't bring a shit attitude in. Don't bring in this idea that because you pay money, you deserve results. And to some people, that's intimidating, but actually, to me, it's just the way the world should be. Like, just pay what you owe, whether it's money or time or effort, and we'll welcome you in. And that's exactly what they did. Like, I got there, and at the time it was run by Rob McDonald, who now he's doing his own thing under Bobby Maximus. He was an ex-UFC fighter. And again, that gives it this idea that, you know, if you're not a fighter, if you're not aggressive, if you won't go till the death, you're not worthy. And again, Rob's not like that at all. He will push you, and he has a way of making comments that push you harder, especially for guys like me. But on that course I did, there was, I got chatting to a guy, super humble. We were chatting on the assault bike, and he asked me what I did, and I told him. I asked him what he did. He said he was in a band. I was like, oh, cool. I just said to him, so what's the name of your band? Like, what sort of music is it? He was like, oh, have you heard of Fall Out Boy? And it was Andy Hurley, who's the drummer for Fall Out Boy. Like, he's like a super CrossFit head. Very, I forget the term they use for it. Not straight line, straight edge.
Right.
He has never drunk alcohol. He's never taken drugs. He doesn't even drink coffee. He's vegan. Everything you wouldn't think of basically a rock star. You know, he makes money, he travels around, could do what he wants and when he wants. But instead, he's got a kind of almost like a little box built into the touring bus.
Right.
So that was the kind of guy there. There was another guy there, Rob, I forgot his surname now. He went to the Paralympics. The guy's got no legs because he got them blown off in, I think it was Afghanistan. And he has cycled across America with no legs, just to make me feel really inadequate about my challenge. He did it with no legs. And I walked in the first time into the place. I was like, what? This guy's like tied to the squat rack. He will go and he will tie himself to the squat rack so that he can deadlift, because he obviously has glutes, like he has his hip muscles, so he can deadlift, but he can't balance enough to pull a heavy weight. So he ties himself to the squat rack so he can hinge. And that's what I'm saying about attitude. Like, you know, obviously Rob can't lift an awful lot because he doesn't have any legs, but the attitude is there. He's like, he could sit at home drinking and, you know, be a war vet, you know, take drugs, drink, and let his life spiral out of control. You know, that's not a knock on vets. I know it is very difficult and they do have difficult situations, but he is an example of bring your attitude. We don't care what you're capable of. We just want to see you give 100% with what you've got. Again, it goes back to what I said about what's on your menu.
Yeah.
You know, Rob's like, he could sit and moan about the fact that he doesn't have legs and he wants to run and everything else, but he can't. So he does what he can do. He cycles across America. He said to me there was times he was going up through the Rockies and he fell off his bike a number of times, and his brother had to pick him up and give him a push start again, because there was times it was getting tough, so he was going too slow to maintain momentum, and obviously he's literally clipped to his bike. It's like a cyclist who can't get their foot out the clips.
Yeah,
it's like you go too slowly, you fall over. So I guess that's Gym Jones in a nutshell. You know, it's for me, it's an attitude. It's not a You know, they have standards. They call them the Gym Jones standards. But again, they're there to push you. They're not a judgment. They're just a target. Like if you want to be an all-round athlete, here's where your deadlift should be relative to body weight. Here's how much you should be able to run a row of 2K and all these different standards. And that's what I like. That's where it fits very well in my life, as we're sort of discussing about if you want to be someone who's capable of doing everything, like, you know, I'm not a superstar in anything. There's people who can row faster than me, they can deadlift more than me, you know, they're better fighters than me, but that's all they can do. You know, that's great. If somebody wants to excel in one area, then I'm all for it. You know, that's what wins you medals and titles and stuff. But I want to create a life where I'm never that far away from being able to do what I want to do. And that's the thing with the cycle across Australia. I don't cycle, but I've got good, you know, I've got good legs, I've got good strength, I've got good stamina because of other stuff I do. So I can just divert for a short period of time and then come back. If I want to do a strongman competition, I can divert and come back. So yeah, that's really the lessons I took from Jim Jones.
It's as you said earlier, it's that what's ideal and what's optimal. And you're always battling between, not battling between, that gives the wrong impression, but you're always flicking between the two. You know, certain times in your life, things are going really, really well and it's ideal. But other times things happen that knock you off, like you mentioned the death at one of your camps. That knocks you off your track for a particular amount of time. And you have to reevaluate and you have to do what's optimal and you have to do what's correct, but you have to come back. You have to keep coming back. It's that bounce back ability that makes us, I think, that defines us. Yeah,
I think again, as cliche as it is, like I look at it like there's no losing, there's no mistakes, but there's lessons. You know, like when, so basically what happened was we did a fitness retreat out in Namibia. We've done our fitness retreat, everything's fine. And then we went, skydiving, we did do that as well. We went sandboarding in the desert. And one of the girls who was on the trip had an existing heart condition. And she went down for a final run. She'd already done 3 or 4 and kind of came off the board. I thought she dislocated her shoulder, went over and her eyes were in the back of her head. She was basically having what we later found out to be a heart attack, and she passed away on the dunes. I'd done CPR on her for about 45 minutes. And, you know, like it's just horrific, you know, even more so for her husband and young children and stuff. But again, it was one of those things, it could have just finished everything for me. Like, right, I'm never going to run a fitness retreat again. I'm never going to do fitness. And but you have to just take that away. And again, the lesson I took from that was really how Claire lived her life, in that she was married, had a couple of young kids, but she was one of these sort of outdoor Aussie girls, as I call them, you know, loved being outdoors, doing stuff. She knew she had this heart thing, but her attitude was, well, you know, if I stop living my life, then I'm kind of dying early anyway. I might as well go and do the things I want to do without being reckless. You know, she wouldn't run too fast. She wouldn't lift too heavy, but she knew moving was good for her. So that was kind of the lesson we took from that. You know, or the other thing was, her and her husband always said they had a week kind of apart from each other. So he would go cycling with his mates in Italy and she came and did this fitness retreat. So there was a bit of a relationship lesson there. Like, you know, if you have to always be on top, pardon the expression, on top of your partner, and you can't let each other out your sight and stuff, again, you're not in a healthy relationship. So, you know, that's something I've learned along the way through all of these shit things happening. I've tried to go, right, I'm just going to kind of flip the coin on this. And actually, that's a good book, just sidetracking a bit, called Flip It by Michael Heppel, where you always look, you know, shit's going to happen and you're never going to stop that, but there's always a way to flip it, learn a lesson, find a positive in it, and kind of move on. So that's probably one of the most important things I've kind of developed along the way.
Yeah, and it's a great lesson to learn, but a tough lesson to learn for all.
It is. It's the hardest one of all, but it's also the most rewarding going forward, because it will just keep opening doors. Otherwise, you literally live your life just with all of these doors in front of you, but they're all locked. And then, you know, you get frustrated with life being boring, or I can't do this and I can't do that. And really, you just have to realise that you're your own limit at the end of the day. And yes, there will be things that make it more difficult, but, you know, welcome to life.
Absolutely. So speaking about opening doors, what doors are opening for you moving forward?
A lot at the moment. I'm actually sat here staring at my goals board, which has a lot of numbers on. Since I came back from travelling, I started the camps again. What are we on now? 3 months ago now. We're almost back to 100 members on there. So building that up again, potentially got a new gym opening again. So my thing at the moment is the business. I'm still training hard, or funnily enough, I just knackered my elbow, but I'm kind of focused more on business. But as we were talking about earlier, it's never just business. You know, I'm still still training. We're doing a rowathon challenge next weekend. It's a huge challenge. It's more just for a charity thing. It's a bit of a team thing. But yeah, it's definitely more kind of business for me, setting up new events as well, kind of getting these things across to people because, you know, I guess like a lot of trainers, I went into training and it was all about find the workout. Like a lot of clients do. I just need to know that magic workout.
Yeah.
And then you go, all right, well, I'm getting a bit fitter, but I'm still fat. Why? We know it's nutrition. Then, well, why can person A apply nutrition, person B can't? So then we get into things, mainly the mindset side of things and looking at your personal obstacles and everything else. So that's what I realized is, again, to me, sometimes I say about it consumes my brain and my life gets a bit too much because I find it hard to talk about anything in fitness without talking about everything. And that's why, even on this, I know I keep going off on tracks because it just doesn't work to say, I'm just going to be 100% business. And okay, I'm going to be 100% committed to my wife. And then, you know, then you start letting go of business and you let go of your health and everything else and you miss your friends. It's like, how do we create a life around all of these, we call it these sort of 8 pillars that will create an exciting life, a life that you love. And because you love it, you'll put more energy into everything. And that's really where my path's going now, is all these different ways to get these things across. And, you know, the principles never change, but we just kind of select the right method at the right moment for that particular individual. So I guess that's kind of the path for the next couple of years.
No, that's fabulous. And I know you'll put 100% into it. I know that at some point you'll get an idea and we'll see you on Facebook going off and doing something randomly crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's my thing at the moment is, it's funny, I always used to say, you know, you have these coaches like give 110%. And I used to be like, well, that's just, it's a cool quote, but you're full of shit. Like 100% is 100%.
Yeah.
But it really only dawned on me this week. I'm like, do you know what? It does make sense now in that too many people give 100%. And that's all they give. They give 100%. It's like, this is what my boss is after me. I do everything that's asked of me. When my wife asks me something, I give 100%. And that's good. Like, that will create a decent life. But it's very much like I call it like the employee mindset. And there's nothing wrong with being an employee, but it will keep you at a certain level. And it's giving 120% is the key thing, and saying, right, well, how do I actually step it up? Like, instead of just doing what needs to be done, how do I be better? And that will apply, like in business, I don't just go, yeah, that workout was pretty good, I'm happy. Because you can bet your ass that people will start getting bored, somebody else will copy. And it's like constantly innovating and going beyond what people ask of you. It's the same in training. Like, you know, if you give your clients 3 sets of 10, Dave gets to 10 reps on his squat, and in his head he's going, I could do a couple more, but I'm running out of time. Paul only asked me to do 10, so I'll do 10. You know, he knows he could go to 120% and give 12. Does that make sense? You know, that's kind of the another kind of mindset thing that I'm looking at now, is just looking moment by moment and not where you are. And that's kind of the basis of why a lot of people still have this dissatisfaction. They're just doing enough. They're getting by.
Yeah.
Everyone's all right. You know, we're satisfied. But they're not, going back to what you asked me at the start, that's not what drives you. That's not what gets you out of bed. That's not what makes you cycle across Australia. You know, the 100% would have been, for me, I guess, I'll cycle around Guernsey. You know, to some people, that's really difficult. Can you do that in one go? Or maybe Land's End to John O'Groats. That would be, for an English person, that's the 100% marker. What's the 120% marker? You know, that's what I try and get people to look at now. Just kind of, some people term it over-delivering, but we talk about it in a business sense, over-deliver to your customers. Yeah, great, but are you over-delivering to yourself, or are you just constantly just sort of skim the top a little bit and, yeah, that's enough?
And that's the malady that people face, right? That's their inbuilt limiting factor, that, you know, that everyone has this mentality that, you know, if I just do enough, if I just get enough money, if I just get the right relationship, if I just have the right health, I'm just doing okay and that's good enough. But, you know, life has a way of kicking you in the nuts when you do things like that. It kicks you in the nuts anyway. So you might as well be striding forward. You might as well be trying to achieve magnificence or peak performance or whatever you want to call it, because you just don't know what's around the corner, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like at the end of the day, you will slip back. Like me, I've hurt my elbow now. I can't deadlift, but a couple of my lifts, I know they're going to slip a little bit because I'm not training as hard. But because I've gone to the 120% mark, when I do slip back, I'm still at a high level. And that's what I mean about it kind of creates a bit of a safety net in life. I think the trouble is everybody is constantly just where they need to be. But then as soon as something happens, it's like, oh my God, like life's falling apart. And that's the thing, when you're just doing enough for your relationship, it'll be fine for a long time. But then as soon as something gets in the way, it unravels massively. Whereas if we think about it in terms of, men and women see things differently, and men tend to think, well, I've bought some brownie points. That's enough. That's bought me enough brownie points for a month. Women just don't work like that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's like we have to keep proving ourselves. Women need to see little things over and over and over again. So if you think you can just do one thing and then leave it, then when you have to work late, when you want to spend an extra hour in the gym, now all of a sudden you're below the acceptable level. Whereas if you can constantly be at 120%, when you need to do stuff for yourself, you need to do stuff for the business, okay, you won't be putting quite so much into the relationship, but it's still enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a margin of error.
Yeah. It's an interesting take on something that's bothered me for a long time, being a numbers guy as well,
Yeah, we've all been there, and the thing is, like, that's another good book to go and read is the classic Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Which in terms of relationships, like, men often do a lot of things with the best intentions, and then we just don't understand why it doesn't connect the same with our, the woman in your life. And I think that's a good thing to go away and look at as well. It's like just how to understand other people's values and how they think, and not just think. You might be doing your best, or even more than your best. You're trying super hard, but you're thinking, but if I earn 100 grand a year instead of 80, the wife's going to be happy. She probably won't be. She'd rather you earn 80, but you're there for the kids a couple of hours a night. And again, it's hard for us to accept because, again, men are hunter-gatherers. We, in the past, we did hoard stuff because we didn't know when we were going to, be able to find it again. And this is the trouble in life. We are spinning a lot of plates, and that's exactly what I'm trying to get across to people is that there are systems, if that's the right word, and tactics you can use to just keep pushing sort of everything up. It's not just take this up, but that goes down. And then it's like, oh shit, that went down. Okay, let's push that up. And then after a while, basically everything's just down here because you're exhausted. And I think that is the hardest lesson in life is how do we push everything up at a time?
Yeah.
The truth is actually everything feeds itself. If you've got more money, then you can live out better adventures. If you've got better fitness and you're thinking better, then you will see new opportunities. It isn't just load one and forget the others.
No.
And that's the problem we face now with social media because people get attention by being extreme. I'm the keto guy, I'm the carnivore diet guy, yoga guy, I'm the kettlebell guy, I'm the millionaire coach guy, and you go all in with that person and sort of buy into them, and you might succeed, but everything else fell. And I think that's another great lesson is know the story. Like, I don't want people to look at me and go, oh yeah, he cycled across Australia, I'm going to go and do it. I'm like, yeah, but there was a lot of bad things that happened to actually get me to that point. And, things will go up and down. So know the rest of the story before you buy into anything. And that's why I try and tell people. I'm not afraid to tell people about how I sort of fucked up in relationships or where I did things wrong with money and everything else, because that is the trouble. You can just stand here and go, yeah, I did a cage fight. It was, everyone should do that. Buy my program. But understand that your shins are going to get the shit kicked out of them. You're going to have to sacrifice a bit of work time. You're going to have to sacrifice relationship time. If you're not willing to do that, then maybe this isn't the goal for you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the trouble. We get excited by other people's goals rather than looking from the inside and then building them out within the boundary of, you know, what else we're willing to give.
Yeah. No, absolutely agree. And some great lessons and truly magnificent gold in what you say. And it's been a podcast of that, Jon. And I want to thank you so very much for joining me and spending the past 45 minutes delivering those wisdom and taking time out of your day to join us. Where can people find out more about you and your crazy shit?
Well, personally, if you just look up on Facebook, I've got a weird surname. It's Jon, Jon Le Toq, LE_TOCQ. In terms of business stuff, stormforcefitness.com is the best place to start. And then, as we were chatting about earlier, I'm going to be running an event with a friend of mine on May 2nd called Manifest, where we're basically looking at all the stuff we spoke about. So we're looking at money, adventure, your network, your impact, your fitness, your education, your sleep, and your thoughts. Funnily enough, spells out Manifest. I love stuff like that. But yeah, it's basically a development day, really sort of helping guys in particular to sort of elevate that stuff. So if you're interested in that, then by all means, come and have a chat with me, and we'd love to have you there.
Perfect. Well, that sounds amazing. And once again, I want to thank you for spending the time with me. And hopefully we'll do it again someday. Yes,
anytime. I can chat until the cows come home.
Hey, makes two of us, my friend. Thank you so much.